We're on the eve of Oregon State's home opener against Idaho State. Tonight on #Beavers Football, we take a closer look at the secondary. We go one-on-one with Xavier Crawford, who has stepped up big time on defense. And we break down the Beavers' opponent, how Idaho State could create problems come Saturday. Plus, we hear from you. We'll answer your questions. Just use the #BeaversFB. It all starts now. Reser Stadium set for a showdown between Oregon State and Idaho State. We are breaking it all down for you here at Blitz Lad in Southeast Portland. Welcome, everyone. I'm Amanda Maynard alongside Matt Severson and Nigel Burton. And we want to hear from you guys. Make sure to tweet us using the #BeaversFB. We'll try to answer some of your questions throughout the show. So 16 days in between games for this group. Do you expect any rust? What do you expect come tomorrow?
Young team, I don't know. We'll see. I think the coaches usually have a solid plan. Obviously, it's not Coach Anderson's first time going through a layoff like that. But with a young team, it's probably a little harder than having an experienced team. But I'm sure the coaches have a detailed plan. Like I said, I'm sure they repped up practice this last week, got the kids fired up. Obviously, if you haven't played in 16 days, you're ready to hit somebody who's not on your team. So I'm sure they'll be ready to go. We won't have any problems.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that you would look for is the time between the quarterbacks and receivers, as Daryl Garrison said that they really worked on during this bye. In terms of rush, you'd think more in terms of procedural penalties, things. But those are the things that Gary Anderson really was adamant about from the moment he walked in the door. You wanted to see those things go away. You didn't really see them in the first game. So, I could anticipate a slow start, just everybody kind of getting a feel, and then the Beavers going and doing their thing once they get their feet underneath them.
What are some of the things that you were hoping for have changed from week 1 to week 2? Because as we talked about in Talking Beavers, I mean, coaches say that's really where you see the biggest improvement.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're looking for a huge improvement on the offensive line. They've got to protect Daryl Garrison. You want to be more consistent running the football. And then obviously the receivers have got to learn to make, plays when they're contested, when they're being covered, and helping him out. I mean, I think those are the biggest three things offensively, Matt.
No, you made a great point. I was actually impressed with how tough Garrison was and hung in there with all the hits he took in the Minnesota game. But they got to clean that up, because when he gets in the Pac-12 schedule, we get to meet that. There's some big, nasty defensive linemen in the Pac-12. If he keeps taking hits like that, he might not last the season. So that's a big detail we gotta clean up.
All right, it's time now for our Widmer Brothers What's on Tap, and we're hearing from Gary Anderson about what he learned from watching the Idaho State-Colorado game.
I think it gives you a vision of exactly, the type of speed really that they can possess in those situations, and when you get them against a Pac-12 team where you have a little bit of idea of who the kids are, and after playing them for a year, basically the team speed. They're in the Pac-12. They're going to be fast, and it gives you a little bit better gauge, if you will, of team speed, size, strength, all those things that come with it. So it was a valuable tape.
Again, 7 FCS upsets over FBS teams in the first couple of weeks. Matt, kind of when you were playing, I mean, do you ever need a reminder that these teams can pull off some of these crazy games we've seen over the years? I mean, you look at App State, I mean, all the big ones, Nicholls State.
I don't think a reminder hurts. Obviously, you're well aware that you're the next level up and you're supposed to take care of business. It's supposed to take care of business rather easily. Earlier this year, I know Eastern Washington went into Washington State, I believe, and took care of the Cougars up there. But, quite honestly, you just have to focus on doing your job. Go out, do the things the coaches told you to do, the emphasis, take care of the emphasis they want to take care of that week, and just make sure you get a good all-around win. Move on to the next week. Should be a good stepping stone for the Beavers.
Yeah, I think Gary Anderson was pretty blunt that, the situation, the position this program is in right now, they don't have the right to overlook anybody. And so I think that's where they're at, and I think Gary has been pretty blunt with them that, who are we right now to look over anybody, let alone this team coming in Idaho State.
Just time to go get a win, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Go get a win. Don't worry about any of that stuff.
So, I mean, certainly it's coach speak to hear a win is a win is a win. There are no apologies for how you win. Do you need it to be a blowout, confidence-wise, for Oregon State, or just win is a win is a win?
What do you think, Coach?
It's all how you play. I mean, truly, it's how you play. If they play and they clean up some of those things that we mentioned earlier, and then You add special teams to it that we'll point out a little bit later. I don't see that necessarily being an issue worrying about what the score is, because I think the score will take care of itself. And sometimes having a little adversity is not a bad thing. Getting the attention of a young team isn't a bad thing. For the fans, there's always going to be that comparison between Colorado,
absolutely.
that score, and whatever happens on Saturday.
Yeah, the fans are always going to think that way. And I can't remember if it was my junior or senior year, but Idaho State came and played us at Reeser, and I think we won 73-14, 73-10. And really that was just because they made a bunch of big mistakes. They turned the ball over, they had fumbles, they threw a couple pick sixes. That really doesn't mean anything. The fans get all excited about it, but I would rather just see us go out there and execute, do what we need to do on defense, run the ball with Ryan Nall, Garrison hook up with some receivers, and just have a solid, complete game.
It's funny you bring that up, and that's the difference between being a fan and a coach, because the fans were fired up. Oh, wow. We were scared to death because Idaho State that week exposed a couple things that we weren't really ready for. And we were kind of in scramble mode on how we're going to line up to this, how we're going to play this out. God, we just gave everybody a blueprint of how to screw with us a little bit, alignment-wise. And so
was that me? Was I making mistakes that game?
I wasn't trying to put you on blast. But no, it wasn't. It was just one of those things that, and so it's funny just how fans and coaches and players look at things a lot differently.
Yeah. So we have Idaho State this weekend, Boise State the next weekend, and then you jump into conference play. And obviously it's a very tough schedule for them. What are some of the things that you're hoping to see in these next two non-conference games before conference play starts?
I think pass protection. We talked about a little bit about it earlier. But in the Minnesota game, obviously I think the big reason we lost that game were 2 forced fumbles, hits on the quarterback were sack strips. Excuse me. So if we can focus on pass protection, keep Garrison upright, make him comfortable back there, I think that's going to be a big thing. And just overall focus on the details. With the coaches, I'm sure, had a laundry list of things we need to clean up, and just make improvements on those going into conference play and a big game against Boise State next week.
Yeah, and obviously I think defensive line-wise, which we'll talk about later on, the number of times Minnesota got in the red zone and got points, and then you got to figure out a way to get more takeaways. And so there's plenty of things out of that game that the Beavers need to correct going into these next couple weeks and into conference play.
All right, still to come, a lot more talk on Idaho State, and we're taking a closer look at the secondary position.
A lot of hand checking going on there, but he's got a
Performance against Minnesota. Will they be any better this week?
The key thing with the facility, and I share this with the kids often, that new facility is not because of them. They've done nothing, nor have I, nor has anybody that's associated with this program at this point, has done anything to say, hey, let's build that. It's the past players, it's Beaver Nation, it's the fans, it's everybody that's allowed us to be able to be in that spot. And so we are very grateful, we're humble, we're excited, but they will be able to function as a big-time Division I, Pac-12 athlete on and off the field, and it will make them a better student athlete without question, but it does have some nice bells and whistles in it too.
There's your sneak peek at the Terrace opening up this weekend, and we're asking on social media, what is your one word to describe the new Terrace? Santana says the new Terrace in one word is Beaverlicious, hashtag Beavers Football, which is what you can tweet us. Maybe we'll answer some of your questions. Nigel, I think he said beer, right?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you're going to try that last name.
Yeah, sorry, Santana. That's as far as I go, right?
Yeah.
With you.
Matt, how would you describe this new exciting addition to Reeser?
I'm looking forward to checking it out. I heard actually our buddy James Dockery is taking a party bus down tomorrow to
You're
the
not
game.
invited? He didn't invite you?
Unfortunately, I don't know what happened there. Must have got lost in the mail. But that will definitely be,
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
after we have a few on the Terrace and hopefully root the Beavers onto a win.
And again, as we were talking about on Wednesday, a space for 1,500 people, 13,000 square feet, and it's all kind of Oregon-tied food, beer, wine, which is pretty cool to have all those local influences.
That was the idea. I mean, Todd Stansbury talked about when he was at UCF, they had an area called the Beach, and it was very popular, but he figured probably couldn't have a beach in Oregon at Reeser Stadium.
Maybe a hot tub.
Maybe a hot tub. I'm not sure, but no, it was something they tried to give a flavor of. Here's what our community's about, what our state's about. It's unique to us, unique to Reeser Stadium, and that's what they came up with in terms of the beer garden, and it's pretty cool.
I'm a huge microbrew fan, so you can find me there. Then
you're gonna be
whenever I
ready
make
to
it down.
Test out some of them.
Absolutely.
Okay, we have another tweet coming from Megan Harper, and she is asking, what is the game the Beavs could surprise us pleasantly by beating at home? Nigel, what do you think?
I mean, when you look at the schedule, there's nobody's untouchable. I mean, truly. I mean, even U of O, it's a rivalry game, and you look what happened last year, especially in the second half. It's not even close. The Beavers outplayed the Ducks. You look at Boise State, that's a winnable game. I mean, we talked about that on Wednesday. Cal, from all accounts coming out of camp, did not look good and obviously struggled against San Diego State. Utah is probably the best looking team right now coming out of the South. I called early in the season, I think Arizona in November, that's going to be a win. I heard some people already chalking up as a win. Slow down. Yeah, hold on. We're not there just yet. But obviously the Beavers have looked better and Arizona has struggled. So.
And it's the funny thing too is, and you know this probably better than anybody, but you go along the season and people get hurt, crazy things happen, and there could be two completely different teams by the time we get there in the schedule. But I have to agree with Nigel. I don't think anyone's untouchable. Oregon would be a really nice one to get, obviously. 10 years in a row, I think it's about time to flip the script on that. But no, Arizona, Washington State, very winnable games. I think, quite honestly, I don't think I'm ever going to go into a game thinking we don't have a shot this year at home.
All right, make sure to tweet us your questions again using the hashtag BeaversFB. We'll try to get them answered. We're breaking down the Idaho State game still ahead. Daryl Garrettson, he's talking about his growing chemistry with the receiving core. But first, we are talking defense. Xavier Crawford sitting down with our Mike Parker to talk about the secondary. Welcome back to Blitz Lad in Southeast Portland. We are getting you ready for Saturday's game between Oregon State and Idaho State. And remember to tweet us your questions using the hashtag BeaversFB. Now, the Beavers secondary opened this season with a solid performance against Minnesota. At the heart of it, redshirt freshman Xavier Crawford. He tallied 8 tackles, 2 pass breakups. Our Mark Parker had the chance to catch up with him earlier in the week.
Xavier, it is great to have at least somebody with a connection to Pittsburgh, California, and the great Ken Simonton. So when Beaver fans see Pittsburgh, they think of Ken, and you know Ken, huh? Tell me a little bit about your relationship with the great Hall of Famer Ken Simonton.
He's a family friend, he's always been around since I was young. But in high school, he was actually one of our coaches, and he was just one of the coaches that always pushed me and, told me just keep working hard and always try to play above everybody else. It just made me have to, up my game at all times and not get relaxed just because maybe I'm playing somebody that's not as fast as me or somebody that's not as strong. It doesn't matter, just go hard every play.
You actually committed to the previous staff and Coach Perry. And tell me about then the coaching change and how that all affected you and what your thoughts were about staying with the commitment to Oregon State.
When I first found out Coach Riley left, I was kind of disappointed, but after talking to Coach A and just hearing what he had planned, I was kind of excited to come, just as a new change. So I really just wanted to play and get up here, to be honest.
And you've played now. You started. You finally, after waiting as long as you have, after committing early, went through a redshirt season and played. What was it like to be on the field and the adrenaline, the nervousness, all of that before almost 50,000 in Minneapolis?
It was a relief, to be honest. It's been a while since I took the field, since high school. So it was just a relief, getting out there. I had a little bit of nervousness, but once I got into the rhythm, it felt good.
And that interview brought to you by your local Toyota dealers. And here's a look at the numbers for the starting secondary. Pretty good performance by them, keeping Minnesota to 130 yards in the air in week 1. Were you guys impressed by this group?
130 yards, and you thought it was, good God. They do that the rest of the year. They're going to be the number 1 secondary in the country.
I think for all the clout the Minnesota quarterback had, I think he had like 35 yards at halftime, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
first rounder.
Maybe pull the reins back on that one a little bit on the first round. But no, I don't know if you could ask for much more, especially out of a young group.
Yeah, obviously there's some things they still need to shore up. The tackling in the red zone was an issue. They didn't create any takeaways. That's going to be huge this week, having some confidence then going into the Boise game. But overall, like I said, 130 yards. They kept everything in front of them. They didn't give up any big plays. For the most part, tackled well. Devin Chappelle with the big hit. You start to send people a message. If you come across the middle, you're going to pay for it. Those are all good signs coming out of week one.
And we just heard from Xavier Crawford leading with 8 tackles. What did you think of his performance in his debut?
Kid had a heck of a debut, right? What more can you say? Two pass breakups. Those are always big. Like Nigel said, if he could take the next step and reel a couple of those in, create some turnovers, I think that's where obviously he can improve. But 8 tackles, that either means he's recognizing run, flying up to the line of scrimmage and making a play at the line of scrimmage, or he's someone you can count on when someone gets in space that he's going to make the play, make the tackle, so we can line up again and have another down.
Yeah, he did a nice job, but I'm going to put him on blast when we do our special teams breakdown. So
all right.
Love to you, X, but
can't escape the coach. Can't escape the coach.
Yeah, the film don't lie. Film don't lie.
It's an interesting mix back there of some experienced guys like Deku, a younger guy like Xavier Crawford. How do you, I guess, as a DB coach, how do you kind of balance that, in the DB room?
Oh, kill them all. I don't know. It's different. I've had the range of guys. I've had young guys. And really what you want to do is you need to break them down when they're early, get them to trust what you're teaching them. And then once they become, juniors and seniors, you're talking to them differently. It's not about, jumping on them for every little thing. You're talking to them about the game and what are they seeing. And then really how can they help you coach them better. So you're hoping that Deku's in that position. He doesn't have that much experience necessarily to be there. But by the time Xavier Crawford is a junior or senior, that's where you're hoping he is.
No surprise, pressuring the quarterback was at the top of Gary Anderson's priority list this week. Were you disappointed at how they did in week one, or is that just...
I think they did a fine job, and anytime you go into the fourth quarter with a lead, obviously we're doing something right. Do we need to get more pressure on the quarterback? Do we need to step up and make plays, especially in the fourth quarter in the second half? That's how you put the game away, or at least give the offense, some momentum when they get back on the field. So are those things we have to focus on and improve on? Absolutely. Overall, I think for the first game, that was, pretty darn good performance. Just a couple things we could work on, and, clearly, after having 16 days off, hopefully they put in the time to get those things fixed.
I'm just curious if Gary Anderson yelled at the D-line coach. Because he is the D-line coach. So
job. They should be the top.
You're not going to get a lot of sacks out of the defensive line in this system. The 3-4 system, the pressure, the sacks, all those numbers are going to come from the linebackers. You bring pressure to get pressure. It's not really if you're getting it from a 3-man rush, you got some real dudes. You look at 3-4 in the NFL, the Von Millers, the DeMarcus Wells, those guys are really they're linebackers who also rush the quarterback. When you're in that mode too, when you're a 2-gapper, what that means is you're not necessarily trying to penetrate, get into the backfield, create havoc. You're really reading and reacting based on what the offensive lineman does, and that's how you cancel gaps. It's hard to get that vertical pressure to get into the quarterback's lap. So those are the things, and you got young guys, they're 2-gappers, the system, all those things contribute to maybe not having the production you might want from that one group. They'll improve over the year, but you'll see sacks coming from linebackers more than you will D-line. Pressure, harassment, that'll all come from that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but as the linebackers get more experience in recognizing when their defensive lineman takes up 2 blockers, so they have the opportunity to go in there and get after the quarterback and make a play. And, as that experience comes along, we should see more of that.
Yeah, there's a great example early on in the game. They bring a pressure, it hits home, everybody's untouched. Both guys who blitz come untouched, and one misses and the other's trying to drive the quarterback down. He gets the ball off. So you'll see more and more of that.
All right, a little later in the show, we're diving into the Beavers' special teams. We're breaking down a play from Minnesota. What went wrong from start to finish there? But up next, we will hear from the signal caller, Daryl Garrettson, telling us how the chemistry between himself and the receivers have grown. Less than 24 hours away from kickoff of the home opener for Oregon State. Welcome back to Blitz Lad. We are breaking down the Idaho State-Oregon State game coming up tomorrow afternoon. And here's a quote from earlier this week. Idaho State's head coach Mike Kramer, they, of course, got dominated by Colorado, beating them 56-7. And he said the casualty of any 49-point loss is morale. That's the biggest casualty. I started this off today by stating no moping allowed. I don't want to hear it. I saw it from my coaches, and I barked at them. And I saw it from our team, and I barked at them, hey, no moping allowed. How does one deal with a 49-point loss?
Fortunately, I don't remember having to do that too many times. I know there was maybe once or twice in there. But, you know, hey, it's just another week, right? You got to turn the page, start fresh.
I can't imagine those are nice meetings to be in, though, right?
In fact, I remember a couple painful meetings. I think Coach Nigel was smiling at me right now out of the corner of my eye.
I've been on the back end.
Right?
Man, we went to Oregon my first year at Portland State, lost 69-0. Look, you know, the one thing is how you frame it to begin with. I mean, you frame it to your team in terms of, one, we're going there to win, and two, this has nothing to do with Idaho State's season. They want to win the Big Sky and get in the national playoffs. And last time I checked, this win isn't going to do a whole lot either way for that to happen or not happen. So don't worry about it. So that's why when I hear don't moping, it's kind of like, well, how did you frame the Colorado game going into it anyway? Like, if we don't win, we suck? I mean, so I'm not sure what happened. So if that is how they start off the week, if I'm an Idaho State fan, that's not a great sign.
No.
Because they should be excited about coming to Corvallis, having a chance to take on another Pac-12 team.
It's another opportunity, right?
Exactly.
I mean, when you look, we saw the score of the first two games for them. Simon Fraser, they blew them out. Obviously, that Colorado domination.
You talking about the Klansmen?
That's why it's just the NCAA
I'm
logo
sorry.
up there.
I still can't believe that.
Strangest mascot of all time. I'm sorry. I digress. Go ahead.
Anyway.
And next, what kind of do you expect that Idaho State will be any better than they were in Colorado?
I don't know. I would have said yes until I saw that quote from Mike Kramer. I don't know. I mean, listen, when you're sitting in the hotel right now and you've got an OS on your shirt, it doesn't matter. They're irrelevant to the whole process. This game is about the Beavers, how they execute, and how they improve. Who's on the other side is absolutely irrelevant whether you're playing Idaho State, USC, the Dallas Cowboys. If they get some eligibility, it doesn't matter. So it is. I mean, it's about the guys. It's about your execution, how you play.
I mean, and this was a team that, again, 7 first downs, 96 yards of offense. As an offensive guy, I mean, was there something that Colorado was doing on defense? Was their offense just kind of...
That's a long week.
There?
That is a long week. As an offensive guy, I mean, you got to have some pride, right? You have to step up and say, hey, 96 yards, that's just not going to get it done. You're not going to win a lot of games with that. And you have to have some pride in yourself as a football player and get with the guys in the meeting room and say, hey, I don't care what we have to do. Hit the weight room. Stick them on our gloves, you know.
Pride only gets you so far because in the end, one, they were out-athleted. Two, Jim Levitt, I worked for him my first job was for Jim Levitt, who's now the D coordinator at Colorado. And that system's based on pressure. It's based on putting a ton of guys in the box and putting a lot of pressure on your corners. And unfortunately for Idaho State, one of the best corners that's going to come out in the draft this year is the starting corner for Colorado. So they weren't able to win any one-on-one matchups there. And so that, as a result, will get you beat up pretty bad. And so, that's kind of what happens.
All right, turning to Oregon State's offense, we caught up with Daryl Garrettson a little earlier in the week to see what this offense was working on during the bye.
It was important to me to really work on anticipation and timing with the routes with the receivers and just understanding when they're getting open, when they're getting out of their breaks. So that was the one thing I took away from the Minnesota film that I could have done a lot better. Helping out the line too and getting off the ball quicker. So those were two main things that I took away from that game, and it was something that was really good and glad we learned from it. The week 2 bye is kind of weird, but it allowed us to clean up some stuff.
And you're taking a look at the wide receiver group in week 1 against Minnesota. I know a lot of people impressed by Seth Collins, a little disappointed in Bolden and Villeman. Matt, do you think that Bolden and Villeman have what it takes to be real difference makers in this league? Because I know that's something Gary Anderson said during the summer, that's what they need to be. I'm
going to echo that statement. I was actually very impressed with Seth Collins. And he seemed to put his game face on, and he made plays when he got the opportunity. Villeman and Bolden absolutely can be difference makers, and they've made plays throughout the course of career at Oregon State. They've done some great things. Villeman's a heck of a threat down the field for us. As you see right here, that one actually was an overthrow by Garrettson, but I actually saw a drop on a similar pass from Villeman, which you just don't see. He needs to make that play, and Bolden's been in the system long enough. He's been on the team long enough. He's a senior. you just need your seniors to step up and make plays when they get opportunities. So that was a little disappointing to see because we definitely missed out on some opportunities.
And Nigel, I mean, we heard Garrettson talking a little bit about working on the chemistry, the timing with the receivers. Did you think it was there in the first game?
No.
No.
No. I mean,
That was a very quick answer.
He
right?
watched film and they figured that out pretty quickly. I think the thing that I thought was interesting was the guy there's two guys when everything got tight that you could tell throughout the game after the drops and the drop punts and all the melee that was coming from number 6 and number 13, and it wasn't good. Then finally Darryl said, you know what, forget it. I'm going to 22, and I'm going to Nate Togia. I'm going to 22 and 81. And you look at third downs, Seth Collins converted on 3 passes on third down, and the other 2 were to Nate Togia. After a while, he stopped throwing the ball to Bolden and to Villeman because he wasn't trusting that they were going to be able to make a play for him. And when it comes down to it, those guys have got to make plays when they're contested. And that's what wasn't happening and has to happen this week.
Well, that's good news, bad news, right? Because that shows you your young guys are stepping up and making plays for you, which you wouldn't expect it. But your veterans are, I mean, hey, where are you guys at, right? You've been here before. You know the details and what we need to get done on 3rd and short. Go make a play.
And Gary has challenged, in particular, Jordan Villeman and his toughness throughout the time that he's been here and said, listen, if you become a tough football player and you learn to fight, you can be a trained killer in this league. And Jordan seems to have been slow to respond to that. So, it's disappointing, but I'm going to tell you right now, if he doesn't figure it out, there's Hunter Jarman, there's Paul Lucas, there's a bunch of dudes, Timmy Hernandez, that'll be waiting in the wings saying, you know what, old man, go over there. We got this.
All right, much more to come here on #Beavers Football. And we want to say, Robert, we got your tweet. We're getting it at the end of the show. And make sure to send us your questions on Twitter. #Beavers Football. Later in the show, our analysts are giving us their keys to the game. But first up, we're taking a recruiting roundup. What players you should be keeping your eye on in the coming years? Right now, we're going from the present to the future of Oregon State football in this week's Flat Tail Damn Good Moment. And this one is all about Isaiah Miller, one of the Beavers recruits, scoring 5 touchdowns and 181 yards, 3 touchdowns called back and 120 yards called back. I'm not sure quite why, but, a pretty good performance for him. He is a running back. And we're going to take a look also in just a minute from the 2017 class, the recruiting class for Oregon State. And it's a very offensively heavy group. What do you guys think about the job that Gary Anderson has done in his brief time at Oregon State when it comes to recruiting?
I mean, so far so good, right? I mean, he's got a couple 4-stars to commit and come to Oregon State. And it looks like every time I check the recruiting statistics that we're getting more talent to Corvallis, which is a challenge in itself. But as he continues to grow the program and hopefully we start putting a couple more W's up on the board, it's just going to make it easier and easier, as well as that new Terrence in the microbrew section that's open on Saturday.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, it's interesting when you look at where they're recruiting. I mean, Gary's taken almost a national approach to it. You see on their commitment list, you got guys from Naperville, Illinois, who you played with a guy from Naperville, Illinois, Timmy Oshinowo. Timmy Oshinowo's from there.
Timmy.
But you've got guys from Belgrade, Florida. You got guys from Chandler in Arizona, kind of a large
handful,
contingent.
Yeah, 3, I think,
of guys
right?
from Chandler in Arizona, guys from Texas. So they're reaching everywhere. And where that comes from is previous relationships with coaching staff, previous relationships with guys who are currently on the team, which is why I think you're seeing a lot of guys from Chandler, Arizona. And it's still early. Some of those guys may or may not end up coming, and there might be some steals. There's some guys who've decommitted, in particular from Washington State, who I know the Beavers are hot on right now. And so this class could still have a lot of change before it's all said and done.
But that's what you have to do to be competitive on the national scale with the big name programs, is we have to go get those guys from Texas and Florida and have them come to Oregon State and create that pipeline if we're going to keep up with our neighbor to the south.
And this is a pretty big recruiting weekend for the Beavers. It seems like a lot of guys coming in and taking their visits this weekend. Nigel, as a coach, what is the key to making that weekend successful? What is it like when you have a kid come in?
I hated coming in on game days. I did. I didn't like it. I just and it's a different philosophy, and I really like what Coach Anderson's doing. What they're trying to do is a much more cutting-edge approach. I mean, they do some things that are very creative on how to get guys not just onto campus, but to get them to say yes. We were a little bit old school. We did a lot of film study. We didn't care anything about stars, and we found a lot of great players who weren't 4-star guys. But I kind of like after the season when it was a lot closer, because I would get these commitments and then it was like I was more nervous when they said yes in August than if they said yes in January, because it just meant that much longer. I had to keep everybody off. And so, you want to show them the family atmosphere. You want to show them all that. But you're not going to outstuff anybody at Oregon State. It's going to be about the vision that the head coach and that particular position coach has for that young man.
Why Oregon State for you? What was your recruiting story?
I got a long recruiting story, but we won't go into that. But it was just a natural fit for me. I think what really helped us get some guys there throughout the course of my time there, when I saw guys and they came on visits and then ended up sticking with us, was just the time they spent with the players. Because as Nigel said, selling a guy on Oregon State, they're going to go to USC, they're going to go to Oregon, they're going to go to Washington, they're going to see bigger stadiums, they're going to see more resources. But if you could connect on a personal level and get him to spend some time with the guys he's going to be around every day and create friendships and say, hey, this is a family atmosphere, I'm going to take care of you, I'm going to show you the ropes, we're going to do this together and form that bond, I think that's the most powerful thing to get people to Oregon State.
It's like anything. It's easy to say no to a school. You make it hard for them to say no to you. And that was what was.
Get in there with the parents, right? Mom and dad, appeal to them. All right, fans, right now it is time to check out what is new at the OSU Beaver store.
Okay, the time's finally here. The home opener against Idaho State. Beaver Nation, we're wearing white this weekend. I'm here at the OSU Beaver store, and as you can see, we have plenty of white selections for you to choose from. We have your Spirit jersey, popular for its loose fit and the traditional Oregon State writing. We have our new Beaver Nation logo here, not to be outdone by the classic OSU Benny. For you traditional fans, we have a simple but straight to the point Oregon State white t-shirt. For those of you that are bringing your kids, we have a simple OSU white t-shirt for them to run around in and get dirty. We also have a few different hats for you guys to choose from as well. My favorite one, the Nike Dry Fit, one size fits all. And for those summer games that are still in the high 90s, for the ladies, we have a tank top for you to wear and cool off. We have everything you need here and more at the OSU Beaver store. Fans start here.
Welcome back to #BeaversFB. And we've got a tweet from an Oregon State fan, Robert, and he is asking, what should make me feel good other than a W in the game tomorrow? Matt, we'll start with you.
Other than a W, huh? Well, I guess, the easiest thing to say would just be completely dominate the game. Do what we want to do. Have a 100-yard rusher. Have Garrison complete 60% of his passes. On defense, create some turnovers, cause some fumbles, get some interceptions, win the turnover battle. Maybe throw in a sack or two like we've been talking about. But it would just be, if we could just get the W, yes, but if we could have a complete performance where both the offense and defense show up and execute what they need to do, can't ask for much more.
Yeah, if Daryl Garrison doesn't get touched, be thrilled.
Success.
Be thrilled, because if he can make it through the season, they can shore that up protection-wise. There'll be upsets early, and after a while, you'll start to just be like, oh, Beavers are back.
All right, you got a couple more minutes to, again, tweet us your questions for tomorrow's game, #BeaversFB. And right now we're taking a look at a special teams play in our Standard TV and Appliance play breakdown. This one coming in the opening kickoff against Minnesota. Nigel, what goes wrong here?
Well, you can see the way that the kickoff team is aligned. The way that they're aligned, it looks a little funky, but they're only going to cover 2/3 of the field. And that's because they're putting it on the kicker to place the ball where they want it, so the returner can only get to part of the field. Well, that means the ball should be placed somewhere along the numbers. Unfortunately, he kicks the ball right onto the hash, which allows the returner to easily get to the field, and then it's all bad for the Beavs. Now, we'll take a look from the other angle. Now, when your kickoff team, the first guy who runs down is Kendall Hill, and he ends up right on his backside, that's a bad look if you're the Beavs, because he gets smoked. Then you've got our guys, man, our boy 13, and then you've also got Jalen Bailey. They need to beat these blocks tight so they can stay in their lanes. Instead, they get washed wide and creates a cavernous lane for the returner to make it through. Now, finally, here's our boy Xavier Crawford. We love him. But, dude, you've got to make sure that the returner doesn't run away from your boys. Keep them inside. That's the no zone. well, he allows the returner to hit the Minnesota sideline, and it's all bad for the Beavs. So there were a lot of things, and it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't just the protection. It wasn't just the wide receivers. It was special teams. It was the kickoff team. It was also the kickoff return team had a chance to actually score a touchdown. The dang off returners got in the way defensively, creating turnovers. So there's a lot of things that, as well as the Beavers looked, and as excited I think as Beaver fans are about seeing a new team who seems to have new life and performing better, there's so many areas where they can continue to improve. That's why I'm even more optimistic about this team.
Now, what did you notice about special teams in that first game?
Just a brutal way to start off the game, right? You're all hyped up, going in. You're going first kickoff of the season. You give up a 60-yard return, and you just can't have it. We also had a blunder where we had a loose ball on a punt, and those are simple things to correct that seem like little things, but when they go wrong, I mean, that's how you flip and lose games, right? When those don't go according to plan. So, like Nigel said, just details we need to clean up and make sure those go smoothly, and it just sets a whole completely different tone.
So.
Well, no, it's going to be ultimately critical next week because Boise State, I mean, that's how they've destroyed people is with special teams play. I mean, they can beat you offensively and defensively, but where they really have separated themselves is in special teams. So that's got to be an area that the Beavers are concerned with.
Well, yeah, and I was going to say, as the season goes along, it's not going to get any easier, right? They're just going to get better and better. So we better shore those things up because that's how you lose games quickly.
And we talked a little bit about Victor Bolden in the receiving corps. Him in special teams coverage. What was kind of your assessment of how he fared? Because there was a couple of miscues back there.
He looked.
We're trying to keep this positive.
He's got more opportunities coming, right?
For improvement.
Room for
There you go. It's all the presentation. There's room for improvement. It wasn't that it was god awful. It was room for improvement. I used to try to go out of my way to recruit a returner because sometimes it's a different animal. Punt return is a tough thing to do. And if you can get a guy who's special back there, it makes a difference.
We had a great one when I was there, Sammy Strotter.
There you go.
Unbelievable. I mean, you knew one, he was going to catch it, and then if he had a seam, he was going to turn it up. And I think he actually took a punt back to the house for us against Boise State was one, and against USC the first time we knocked him off. And he could turn a game for you. So.
Yeah, I mean, catching's a different. I mean, right now the guy that everybody talks about in the league and in the conference is Adoree Jackson. Adoree is not comfortable catching the ball. The 177-yard return he had, he caught off a bounce because it's a different animal when you're trying to catch a ball with people beating down on you like that.
All right, up next, we are wrapping things up. What are the keys to the game? Nigel and Matt weigh in.
Never gets old. Never gets old.
Repeat. Yeah.
Kyle.
And don't forget to join us for Talkin' Beavers every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Of course, James couldn't be here tonight because he's too busy getting ready to get on the party bus. So hopefully we get some of those stories wrapping things up when we come back next week. Guys, who do you think can make some explosive plays this week?
You want to take this one, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, knock yourself out. After you.
Hey, thank you. I got two guys for you. One Ryan Nall.
Okay.
I just like the way he plays. He's done it before for us, and I think he had a good game last week. I think he steps it up this week. Continues to build on that and gets it going. The other, and we saw it all the time last year, is Seth Collins. He's the definition of explosive. You give him a little bit of space, he puts a foot in the ground, and he's gone. So I look for him to just keep building on what he did last week and give us some highlights.
Yeah, I guess I'll go defensively. I think Xavier Crawford is a guy that I'm looking to see help that defense take the next step and get some takeaways and do some things. And then shoot, I don't even know who. I'll just stick with the defense.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, Xavier's a good one.
I'll say Devin Chappelle because obviously he likes to bring the pain when he hits those guys, cause some fumbles and get some things.
He's a hitter. He's a headhunter.
Yeah, he'll smoke you.
All right. Okay, we're getting your Papa John's ingredients to victory right now. And remember, if the Beavers score a touchdown in the game, you win the following Tuesday with Touchdown Tuesday. Just use the promo code Beavers7 for 50% off your online order at papajohns.com. So, Nigel, we'll start with you. What are your ingredients to victory?
Well, I just think watching the Beavers play against Minnesota just really couldn't establish a consistent run game. I think that's the biggest thing, is a consistent run game, take the pressure off of Darrell, allow play action to kick in. So I'm looking for 5 yards per carry. It can happen either which way. I don't care who's carrying the ball. It can be by committee, but carrying the ball, we want 5 yards of carry. Defensively, we've talked about it. We beat you over the head with it. Hopefully, Gary's done the same thing with this team. But defensively, got to create takeaways. Got to create short field opportunities for the offense to score easy points.
5 yards of carry being a running back. I signed me up for that.
Yeah.
I'm all in on that one.
You've done that before. What are you talking about?
Yeah, once or twice, maybe. Once or twice. I want to see 3 sacks. I want to see some pressure on the quarterback. Linebackers make some plays. I have flashbacks to when I played defense. Coach Banker turning on just the close-ups of the opposing quarterback faces and just seeing him grimace, and it was just so satisfying the next week of film study. Let's see that again. And then it was just inexplicable the amount of drops by the receivers last week. No drops. Help out Garrison. Help him get comfortable. Pull in everything he throws you and just make some plays.
So we're all about positivity here. Do you guys get the sense this is going to be a close one, or is this going to be a blowout?
I think we take care of business. And again, we don't need a blowout. I know the fans want to see a blowout, but we just need to do our thing, put together a complete game, have some performances, get some turnovers. And if we win by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think it'll be a win. All I care about is momentum going into Boise State. I think Boise State is the game that we circled to say that's when you figure out how different is this football team because of the history that Boise State has. So that's, this has got to be that thing that springboards these guys into believing they can win that game.
All right, remember, Talking Beavers will wrap things up